Alright, you guys, the dash mount for my camera is off the dash right now and I don't have it, so we're going to do an audio upload. I don't think I've ever done one of these on the public YouTube channel. I have a ton, multiple hours of audio uploads on my Patreon page, which is an investment for your health. Many people ask, why do you have a Patreon page? Why are you charging money monthly for a subscription? Well, for one, because it's a subscription, and predicated upon the amount of time I put into the Patreon page, I charge for it. It's an investment for your health. There's hours and hours of video content, audio uploads, pictures, text posts, polls, interaction with me through Messenger. There's a lot of perks to having a membership to my Patreon page, and I consider it a donation to my channel, a monthly donation, and because of that, I try to give back as much as I can. Usually about 2 to 6 or 7 hours of video content a month, and other posts, you name it. I just wanted to plug that really quick before we get into the bulk of this message, because all of that, it feels really good to have a extension pack, so to speak, to the public YouTube channel where you can get more intimate content, so to speak. I go deeper into certain subjects that I don't feel really comfortable going into detail about here on the YouTube channel. You name it. So now that I got that out of the way, I'd like to just plug the .com. It's www.patreon.com/sacredserpent. And let's get on to the remainder of this message. Wanted to talk about vicious cycles, ladies and gentlemen, because vicious cycles is something that I lived under the jurisdiction of for years, and it's something that I see many other people living under the jurisdiction of. The law of vicious cycles. This is something that I discovered when I started researching traditional Chinese medicine, also known as TCM, something that I'm very passionate about studying and applying to my life. I actually just put out a hour-long introductory course on traditional Chinese medicine and how to begin using it in your life on the Patreon page a few days ago. But the law of vicious cycles, again, is something that I discovered while I was studying traditional Chinese medicine. And the law of vicious cycles, you guys, is when you make one mistake that hinders your life, it hinders your health, it hinders your well-being, and that leads to the next mistake. And you create kind of a chain reaction effect, kind of a domino effect, so to speak, that leads you down a path of destruction. Now, what's interesting about the law of vicious cycles is that when you make one mistake, it oftentimes attracts another. And unless you have some way of filtering out the next mistake or action that harms you, it takes place in your life, and it makes the law of vicious cycles even stronger, the energy of the law of vicious cycles stronger in your life. Now, there's also the law of beneficial cycles. So to get out of the law of vicious cycles and to get back into beneficial cycles, one of the greatest ways to do that, you guys, is self-love. And one of the most powerful acts of self-love is to start taking better care of your health. One of the most powerful acts of self-love is to stop consuming all the death, to stop clogging your organism, to stop putting all the bad karma into your system through eating animals, eating sentient beings, things with a face, things that don't want to die. When you create suffering, you attract suffering to you, especially when you're consuming it, because now you're digesting suffering. Consuming dead animals is much more than just consuming physical flesh, ladies and gentlemen. There's a spiritual aspect to it, and it's not a beneficial spiritual aspect. It's an energetic aspect, whereby when you consume the body of death, you digest the ether, you digest the astral aspects of that physical protoplasm, if that makes sense. It's just like Jesus says in the Essene Gospel of Peace, Volume 1. Life begets life, and death begets death. I believe it's Volume 1. It actually might be Volume 4. Or it's just like Tahuti or Thoth says in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth the Atlantean. The fool liveth in death, it is therefore his food. But to get back on track, the law of vicious cycles is when you guys, when you get yourself into a whirlpool, so to speak, of negative energy that attracts more negative energy. So many people, they're constantly attracting negativity into their lives through what they consume, what they think, what they feel, how they react to things, it's endless. Excuse me. So to transmute vicious cycles into beneficial cycles, you have to first recognize the vicious cycles in your life so that you can transmute them. You have to acknowledge the things that are harming you in order for you to dissolve them, transmute them, and turn that lead into gold, alchemically and metaphorically speaking. You see, many of the things that are troublesome in our lives, ladies and gentlemen, are actually blessings in disguise, because through those issues, through the problems in our lives, we have the divine opportunity to grow out of them, to experience life on the opposite side of the fence, so to speak. Oftentimes, struggles, addictions, bad cycles, bad habits, these are stepping stones for growth. But it's very easy not to recognize that, because many people who are having trouble in their lives focus on the trouble. And by focusing constantly on the trouble, you subconsciously attract more of it to you. Because oftentimes when people think about how they're messing up in life, it's not just thinking, there's feeling involved. And feeling is what really affects the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind reacts very readily and very responsively to subjective feeling and thinking. And that's when your thinking processes are imbued with emotion. Emotions are what create thoughts, because our thoughts are dictated by the colors and textures and feelings, so to speak, that are generated from our emotions, if that makes sense. So to acknowledge how we're messing up. Now, this is something that many people don't like to do, including myself. I did this for years, because sometimes we have this egotistical attachment to our vices, so to speak, where we don't want to acknowledge or look at our reflection. And I don't mean just looking at the mirror. I mean spiritually looking at the mirror, ladies and gentlemen, acknowledging how you are messing up, acknowledging the things in your life that you're doing that are not attracting beneficial energy into your life. So the first law of turning around vicious cycles is to acknowledge them. Everyone knows how they're messing up deep down. We just choose not to look into that sacred mirror, so to speak. So wanting to grow is really how you create beneficial cycles, and you grow out of the negativity. Now, not everyone who's listening to this is in vicious cycles. There's many people out. For as many people as there are suffering in the law of vicious cycles, there's also just as many people in the law of beneficial cycles. The law of beneficial cycles is when one good thing leads to the next good thing. This, to many people, is also known as luck. So for me, every day of my life, I'm growing, predicated upon the successes of my work the day prior. I'm constantly drinking clean water. I'm constantly putting the herbs in my system. I'm constantly increasing my health, both physically, mentally, emotionally, all of it, spiritually. And because of that, my life has improved 10,000-fold. Whereas I used to be an alcoholic, I used to abuse my body on a regular basis. And at that time, I never could figure out why I was miserable. I never could figure out why I kept making more and more mistakes. Each day got worse. It didn't get better like it does now. My life every day gets a little bit better. But when I was younger, when I was drinking heavily and smoking heavily and occasionally using drugs and just abusing my body in a handful of different ways, every day got worse. It wasn't until I sat down and really acknowledged my issues and accepted that I had issues that I could actually move forward. And once I did that, once you accept the fact that you have issues, excuse me, that sounds kind of bad. Once you accept the fact that you have problems in your life that are damaging your health, once you truly accept that, your heart space kind of opens and you have a much more gentle view of yourself. You stop judging yourself so much, and you start, instead of criticizing yourself, you start to look at the building blocks in your life and how to rearrange them so you can start growing out of those issues. So it's a secret in traditional Chinese medicine. And it's kind of sad that this is a secret because it's so common sense. But the Westerner, in the West, common sense isn't so common. In traditional Chinese medicine, it is said that the greatest way to start increasing your health and to remove yourself from the law of vicious cycles is to focus on your health. Focus on an ideal in your mind of you being healed. Oftentimes, people in the West, they focus on the negativity. They focus on how they don't feel good. They focus on issues and little isolated things that really have no bigger picture in the grand scheme of things. So to begin growing, you need to envision yourself growing. You need to spend as much time focusing on the ideal you. You need to spend more time doing that than focusing on the non-ideal you. But through the construction of the Matrix, here in the United States of the Matrix, this is the hub of the Matrix, the United States, they've erected a system of education, of propaganda, of media that actually warps your view about yourself and teaches you to hate yourself, hate your self-image. They teach you to look up to others in this world and to devalue yourself by doing so. We don't give ourselves enough credit, ladies and gentlemen, and for as much media and mind control that they're pumping out here in this world, there's a completely deliberately designed and engineered food system to further cultivate your mind control. So you engage in it by eating the system's garbage foods, clogging yourself up, putting the death inside your system. And on top of that, with all the TV and the education and everything else out here, they ensnare your soul. I hate to say it. I'm not trying to sound negative. But only when we realize that there's traps set for us can we escape them. Or if you're already trapped, only by acknowledging that can you get yourself out of that trap. And it's all mental. It's a choice. We choose to engage in these toxic patterns, these toxic lifestyles. You see, by default, by the law of attraction, and I know that's a rehashed New Age word, but there's truth to it, especially subconsciously. Through the law of attraction, when you engage in a negative lifestyle, you attract negative thinking and negative feeling. So you could be a positive person who has positive goals and aspirations, but once you start living this toxic lifestyle with all the bad foods and the television garbage and all this, you start attracting that negativity to you, even though it may contradict your morals. And that leads to confusion, and confusion can lead to depression. Because confusion affects the emotions, and the emotions affect the thoughts. And the thoughts dictate how we react to things in this world. Our thoughts, we are not necessarily what we think, ladies and gentlemen. We are as we think. There's a huge difference. There's a huge difference. So I'm going to wrap this one up, you guys. I just wanted to talk briefly about the law of vicious cycles and the law of beneficial cycles. I don't want to go past 20 minutes on this audio clip because it's not a video, and I have never actually even done an audio clip here on the YouTube channel. This is the first time. Videos are more powerful, so I'm going to keep this one under 20 minutes. Always remember that in order to change out of the law of vicious cycles, you have to start focusing on beneficial things. You have to acknowledge the issues in your life. You have to acknowledge the things that are keeping you from being able to progress forward. It's like being in a sailboat with an anchor tethered to the bottom of the ocean. You can try to lift that anchor up with your hands, but it's too heavy. You need to let go of the anchor. Oftentimes we sympathize with our issues and we metaphorically cling to our anchor. We learn to have sympathy for the negative attributes of our lifestyles. That's the anchor. I'm speaking in metaphors. I'm speaking in parables, in a sense. A lot of people spend more time fiddling with their anchor than striking it with something to break it free from the boat. A lot of people spend more time focused on the anchor than they do fixing the sail that has holes in it, so that when the anchor does finally break free, the sailboat can move according to the jurisdiction of the wind. Excuse me. Letting go of non-beneficial things, non-beneficial friends, non-beneficial patterns. Sometimes letting go can be difficult. Sometimes letting go can be painful. But it's just like that famous adage goes, sometimes without pain, there's absolutely no gain. See, we avoid pain, ladies and gentlemen, and that's oftentimes why we don't grow. Because it's easier to live with our pain than to transmute it and to get out of these shackles. We sympathize with pain. And that's why there's so much sickness. That's why there's so much misery here in this matrix. People sympathize with things that they shouldn't sympathize with. But that's how you've been taught to think. That's how your neurochemistry has been thought to react, or been trained to react. Whether people like to acknowledge it or not, the human species has a lot of evolving to do. We are sinking. We are not raising, ladies and gentlemen. We are not rising, excuse me. Our thoughts, our emotions, and our biologies have been terraformed into something much different than what they could be. We were designed to live in heaven consciousness, ladies and gentlemen. Physiologically speaking, and emotionally, mentally, spiritually, you name it, the whole package. But here in this world, we live in hell consciousness, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. You start getting healthy, you start eating the right foods, you start flushing the toxins out of your system, you start cleaning up your liver, you start cleaning up your act, you start bringing balance to your kidneys. You start taking care of your nerves, you stop eating so much, you stop clogging yourself full of the system's garbage foods. Through taking better care of your health, you start to see past the illusions. You start to see past the vices, the traps that have been set out here as tests of our will. You see, it's not necessarily bad that these traps exist. They're testing us. But it's like a minefield, ladies and gentlemen. You wouldn't just run through a minefield haphazardly. No. Unless you want to potentially go boom, boom, boom. I don't think anyone wants to actually self-destruct. On behalf of this channel, may peace be with you all. And again, I'm going to plug my Patreon page one more time at www.patreon.com/sacredserpent. For multiple hours of bonus video material that you'll never find here on the public YouTube channel, you can visit my website, my Patreon page, and become a $5 member. There are 5 different reward tiers, also known as subscription options. There's a $5 one, a $15 one, $25 one, and up. All 5 subscription options, however, get the same amount of video material, text posts, access to Messenger with me, you name it. However, there's certain perks that the more expensive rewards or subscription options get. For instance, Supreme Access Silver, which is $15 a month, gives you all of the benefits of the $5 subscription, all the videos, you name it. But I will also record you a private 8 to 15 minute video just for your eyes only about whatever subject you wish to hear me talk about. And I do this for every month of your subscription. So go over there and check out all of the different reward options. There's 5 of them again, and they each have different benefits. But until next time, I apologize for the audio upload. But the dash, because I'm selling my vehicle, I had to take all of the dash mounts for my camera off the dash. Peace be with you all.